So now I'm going to show you how to make your native spawn blueprint. So that's sort of the first thing. So you see here we're in the content. This is the correct place to be. So what you want to do is make a new folder in here, call the name of your mod. So we'll just call it sort of test mod or something. So test. Then here you create a blueprint class, and it has to inherit from actor. And inside this, I'll just call it init space rig, or init cave. So there's two things you can call your natively spawned blueprint. You can either call it init space rig or init cave. Init space rig loads your blueprint when the player is spawned in the space rig. And init cave loads your blueprint right after the drop pod has landed in the cave. So in my opinion, this is sort of native spawning's major drawback. So some mods, one of my own big ones included, would have a big problem if they're loaded after the drop pod has landed, because the mod wants to do stuff and might want to do stuff whilst the players are going down in the drop pod. Which obviously they wouldn't be able to do if they're spawned after the drop pod has landed. So that's sort of time when I would use, if your mod is affected by that, I would use the Blueprint Mod Manager's alternate method, which is sort of the legacy as well. So I want to load my test mod in the space rig, so I call it init space rig. So let's open this up and ignore viewport, ignore construction script, and we can just delete actor, begin, overlap and event tick, because we only really want begin play at this current point. So I want to make a new node, so we drag off this, and I'm just to test the mod works, I'm going to set global time dilation to 3. So this basically runs the game 3 times faster. So this is how we would know that the blueprint is loaded. So we'll just compile, and I don't want to hit compile and save every time. So I'm just going to save and compile and then click always. So now when we compile, it always saves as well, so you have to never click this button if you don't want to. You can also drag that in there and it makes it easier to get to it. And that is how you natively spawn a blueprint. So I'm just going to show you, you want to package your project. First, actually, I'm going to go package settings. Make sure this use pack file is off. The configuration needs to be shipping, so make sure it's on shipping. And yep, this is correct. So if we just close that and then go package project, Windows 64-bit, and then I want to put it into this folder. So we just wait for it to pack. Quickly allow that. It shouldn't take too long because this project is empty. However, to be fair, this is the first time packaging on this project, so there we go, it's done. If it's taking any longer than 3 or 4 minutes, even with an empty project, it's taking longer than 3 or 4 minutes, something's going wrong. But luckily it provides an output log for that. So if we go to this, we'll see that now there is a folder called Windows No Editor. If we go into this, then FSD, and then content, we can delete these 2 files, they're not needed, and this is where my my natively spawned blueprint is. So if we now copy asset registry.bin and content, that's all we need, those 2 files, and then go to DRG packer, and inside input, delete what you already have in there, and put in this stuff, and then just run pack. Right, and then we have our new pack. So now we go into mods. Actually, already have a folder here called test. That's the name of our folder here. So this is inside your game install, Steam or whatever, Deep Rock Galactic FSD mods. Then you make a folder, the name of your mod, and then what you do is you name your pack just the name of your mod, just to, you know, keep everything tidy and make sure this is definitely right. And then if you load it into the game, this would work. I'm currently making this tutorial with no internet, and there is currently a bug in the game where if you have no internet, any locally loaded mods are blocked from loading. But I have tested this and this works. When you test this, when you open the game, and make sure it's enabled in the modding tab, then your game dilation, your running speed and everything you're doing, jumping, everything, is 3 times faster, because we set it to 3 times here. So that's how you spawn mods natively. And now I'm just going to show you that I'll link to the guide that Arctic Echo made and Samamstar made for their BPMM and DRGLib, how to sort of interface with them. Right, so now that we have native spawning out the way generally, I'm going to show you how to create your mod using the Blueprint Mod Manager alternate method as well. So in here we just create a new folder called _mod bps, if you don't already. The underscore just keeps it at the front. And then we need to go into here, and I'll just quickly get out. So in here we have a file called modbase v2. This is all downloadable on the Blueprint Mod Manager GitHub. That's all linked as well. So we take this, go into here, go into there. We can delete this. We can delete these 2 things. Oh wait, okay, it doesn't matter. Remove them afterwards if you want. Developers and collections you don't need. Then mod BPs, and you just paste in modbase v2, and this has been imported automatically into here. So this is basically the sort of the parent mod that you inherit all of your mods from, if you're using this method, that is. So this is a non-native spawning method. So I want to create a mod, so I create blueprint class, and I'm going to call this mod 070. I'll call it yeah, 070, sure. So the reason that I'm using an ID like a number here is because the way that the mod manager works in this way is everything's ID'd, so you claim an ID that hasn't already been claimed. You just tell Arctic or whatever, and you name your mod that. You can rename it afterwards if someone's already claimed yours, there's no problem with that. So I mean, that's basically how you do that. So we can get rid of these 2 things again. And then off begin play, you notice if you do bind event on initialize like this, you can add thing, but I'm not going to use on initialize because technically this is not required anymore. So let's just say on start. So the reason we have to bind an event on start is because this event would be called by the mod manager, so we have to actually make an event. We can't just drag off this line, unfortunately. So I'm going to make an event here, and let's just add custom event, and I'm just going to call this on start handle, on start event. Sorry. Right. So now we've got this event, and now we can drag off this execution line. So that's important. And then I'm going to now change time dilation, do the same thing as before, and set it to 3. And there we go. That'll be this mod here working fine. Just there we go. I'm a bit of a tidy person. I like to tidy my things up. Just bring this back here. And then this will be this mod basically done. So now if we go into package project, Windows 64, delete this previous folder and then click that so that it actually packs in there and not in the one we deleted. We'll just wait for this to package. There we go. So now, in here, nope, that one, go FSD, content, delete that. We don't want to natively spawn anything, so we'll just delete that. We have more BPs. You can delete that as well if you want, it doesn't matter. So now we just have this. We don't, for non-native, you don't need to copy this file. So now I go into this, delete those two, paste that there, and then pack. There we go. And now, instead of putting it in mods folder, we put it in packs. And we put it there. You don't have to rename it anything if you don't want to. Oh, my control key's stuck. There we go. And also, because this is using the Blueprint Mod Manager, you will need the Blueprint Mod Manager pack as well. So now, if I load up Deep Rock Galactic, because this is a completely offline mod and there's no bug stopping it from loading because it's blocked by mod.io as we saw with the native thing, I should just be able to load the mod in DRG when it loads up. So this will load as hopefully that isn't too
Must remember to get my gear upgraded.
There we go. And see, look, I'm running really fast, so this is what version 3 times looks like. And you see there's a mod manager here and unknown, so this is my mod here. And it obviously doesn't know what it is because I didn't name it. If we want to name it, so if I go out of here and I want to name my mod, if I go into here and go to class defaults, you see that there's a few mod manager settings here. So this is inherited from mod base. If we call this, if I call this 3 times speed, and I'll just call it that, and I am Buckminster Fullerene. And then we packed and everything in the game in the mod manager. It would show up as 3 times speed developed by Buckminster Fullerene version 1.0 in the actual manager.
Hello and welcome to the tutorial for using DRGLib to add a settings page to your Blueprint mod using the new native spawning system being added in the mod.io update, hopefully update 34.5 of Deep Rock Galactic. Things are looking good with the experimental release, so hopefully it won't be pushed to 35. Cross your fingers. Now, what we have here is a quick example mod I made that shows a mission timer that's how long we've been in the mission at the top of the screen, right below the compass. What our objective is to use the DRGLib libraries in order to add a custom settings page into this settings menu so that we can change whether or not this timer includes microseconds.
We rock!
Let's say bye to Bosco, because we gotta go over to Unreal Engine. Now, the process for including DRGLib in your project is pretty simple. Inside your content folder, it'll probably look something like this with your single mod folder. In my case, I've named it Mission Timer, and it's got all my related things inside. As you see, I've already prepared a simple settings page. In order to use DRGLib with our mod, there's a few simple steps. Step 1, we'll download the latest version of the DRGLib dev kit from the DRGLib dev kit files GitHub repository. You can find that in the video description or over in the Sam's DRG mods organization. On the right here, you see our releases. The most recent one, as of the recording of this video, is 2.3.x. Let's go ahead and download that dev kit. When we open up the zip file, we see it contains a content folder and a single DRGLib folder. This may remind you of what our current mod setup is inside Unreal Engine, and that's because it's basically the same thing. So what we'll go ahead and do is open up our project folder. You see I've got fsd.u project, that's what I named the Mission Timer project. and we will go ahead and merge this content folder with the one inside our project. As you can see, I now have DRGLib next to mission timer, and if I open up my project, we also have DRGLib in here. Now, when we import the content files, usually it will import all the functions correctly. Looks like that did work in this case, but sometimes you may have to restart the Unreal Engine editor in order to accomplish this. There are a variety of useful functions included with DRGLib, including the DRG function library, which can give you stuff like whether you're currently on the space rig and the local player controller. But what we're interested in specifically for this video would be the settings UI area. This has two objects, the lib function library settings functions and the lib interface settings page. Using those two, we can add a custom settings page for our mod. Before we continue, however, there's one thing we have to do. Inside our project settings, under packaging, under this advanced drop-down, there is a section labeled Directories to Never Cook. When you are making a mod with DRGLib included as a dependency, you never want to include the DRGLib files inside. The reason for this is that the files included with the dev kit are simplified files without a lot of the source code in order to make it simpler to implement as a mod dev and not have as many dummy objects lying around. As a consequence, this does mean that if you were to include the DRGLib files inside your mod, you might cause conflicts if you were not to exclude them from cooking. You can also do this manually by just not packaging it when you use DRG Packer, but I prefer the automated method inside packaging. Now, in order to use this settings UI, it's pretty simple. All we need to do is pull up our main actor. As you see, I've just got a simple begin play and add the widget to the HUD for the HUD timer. And we just need to also create a settings page widget. In this case, since I already have that one pre-prepared, I can just grab the MTR settings UI. Gonna set that to a variable in case I need it later. And then we're gonna call the function add settings page, which you can find in the DRGLib category when you right click. What this function does is it will add a user widget into the settings page as a new tab. Or, well, not tab, the drop down's on the left. It will return whether or not this succeeded. It will fail occasionally if your mod loads out of order with DRGLib, so I strongly recommend including a method to deal with that case. A pretty simple way of doing it is to branch, and when it fails or false on the boolean, we can just wait a little bit. In this case, the default 0.2 works, and loop back around to continue. This is a little bit clumsy since it will get stuck forever in the case that DRGLib is not installed. However, since the mod wouldn't have a settings page either way in that case, that seems like a fair compromise to me. Now, let's go ahead and look inside our settings UI and get this ready for DRGLib as well. In order to use DRGLib with our settings page, we need to implement the lib interface settings page, which you can find in class settings, interfaces, implemented interfaces. This will add several functions into a new category in our section on the left here. And each of these functions are used by DRGLib to communicate with your settings page. All communication is done directly with the settings page and does not interact with your main mod in any way. This is done so that if you have multiple separate settings pages for your mod, you can implement them separately in a much cleaner fashion. Now, there are 4 separate functions currently for the DRGLib settings page. We have getPageCategory, which you can return a string array to give subcategories for your mod. You may notice that the default DRGLib settings pages all have their own subcategory. There's getPageInfo, which requests a page name and subtitle We're going to use that in this case. Just call it mission timer, and subtitle will be a simple tutorial. There we go. There's also these two right here, page closed and page opened. You might notice that those are both green. That means that they don't return any values, so to implement them, you need to right-click and use the Implement Function option. This adds it into your main graph. There's nothing else in this graph right now, just because I haven't added those. And this is Event Page Closed. Every time your page gets closed by the DRGLib settings page, it will call this event. Now, to do something useful with our mod using this, I'm going to go over the approach of using my main actor, MTR main, in order to handle all the settings. You can use a different approach in your own implementation, however, this is what worked for me in this case. In order to communicate with the main page, we're just going to use an event dispatcher, and we'll name that page closed. My mistake, since that's already in use by the DRGLib interface, let's try, whatever, MTR page closed. It's not that important what it's named. We will call that event dispatcher every time the page closed event is called. Now, that's everything we need from this settings page end. Inside our main actor, let's add some extra logic to deal with when the settings page is closed. So, once the settings page has been added off of this branch, we're going to use the settings page reference to assign this MTR page closed event dispatcher. And what we're going to do is every time the page is closed, we're going to get the timer checkbox, which is that UI element I have in the UI page, and then we're going to get is checked. And depending on whether or not it's checked, we're going to branch and do something different inside our mod logic. I have a lot of the logic for the microseconds set up already, so let's skip straight to doing this, where if the checkbox is set to true, we will set fractional digits to 2. That's going to show 2 microseconds worth, or 2 decimal places worth of fractions, and then we're going to set it to 0 if it's false. And with the functions I've already established, that should work fine. You may notice we've gotten an error. That's just because we haven't compiled our settings UI, and so it doesn't realize inside this blueprint that that event dispatcher exists. Now that we hit compile on there, everything's good to go. Now we've got all that together. We've got DRGLib set not to pack, and we've got our mission timer logic done. We're going to go ahead and package the project, selecting Windows 64-bit. Just going to put that straight into the default folder in this case. Now it should take it just a moment to pull up, so while we're waiting for that, let's go ahead and get our DRG packer ready, as well as locate where that's being packed to. In this case, it's just putting into Windows No Editor inside my project folder. Now that the packaging is complete, we can find FSD content inside the Windows No Editor folder, and you might notice there is no DRGLib inside here. Just like we did earlier, we disabled the packaging of DRGLib to make it nice and easy. If you did want to do that manually, you can just remove DRGLib from this folder before you send it over to DRG Packer. Now, let's copy all that, put it into our input folder for DRG Packer, run pack.bat. Now we'll take it from output. I'm just going to name it something a little more friendly than new_p. Go with mission timer. Then we're going to cut that, and we're going to put it over in our local mod testing folder inside Deep Rock Galactic. You can find that in FSD mods. I already have a mission timer subfolder inside there right now, and let's go ahead and paste over the existing pack file. Now that we've got all that done, let's go ahead and launch Deep Rock Galactic and test out our new checkbox. Probably cut this part out of the final video, but also maybe not. I wouldn't know. You know, maybe Buck would want to keep it. I'll probably mute it though.
Here we go again.
Okay, we've now loaded into the space rig. You can see the mission timer up at the top there. If we open up the DRGLib settings menu, you can see our mission timer settings page. Now when we click the Show Microseconds checkbox, nothing happens yet, and that's because we had all our logic apply when the page is closed. So now when we close it, there you go, we're getting microseconds on our mission timer. And it works just fine when we turn it off as well. I hope this was an informative tutorial. If you want more advice on how to use DRGLib, feel free to always message me on Discord. I'm usually pretty active on the DRG modding Discord, which you can find under the fan Discords page in the main Deep Rock Galactic Discord.
Cheers, everyone.
Additionally, there's some great blueprint modding tutorials by Buckminster Fullerene. This video will likely be a part of those, so you might have already found the rest of those tutorials. If you want more advice on how to use DRGLib, specifically inside Sam's DRG mods, DRGLib wiki, I have a few separate pages on what to do. For now, this video has covered everything that's currently there. However, I do plan to expand this with newer tutorials as I add to DRGLib. With all that said,
Fortune and glory.
thank you so much for watching this video. And may I just say, may your minds be full and your beer mugs be fuller.
Yes.
Rockin' Stone, brothers.